Hello and welcome to Red's Business and Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Barnes.
I'm your co-host, Brad Ferris.
Today we're sitting down with Marty Conneely, who's the founder and director of Aginic. We're getting a lot of insights out of Marty today on his business background and data and why data. But mate, before we get there, Marty, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, mate. Do you want to start with your background way back, and then we'll go from there?
So obviously, Red office in Toowong in Brisbane. I'm a Brizzy boy, born and raised here, and just born on the south side of the river. Went to QUT and had that fairly stock standard Brizzy upbringing. So down the beach and having a great time. And then I had to get serious after uni. So my old man pushed me into probably a more conservative type degree than I would have, but I'll quickly go into it. I started a marketing degree because I thought I love talking to people, I love selling things, and my old man's like, no, accounting, that's the way forward. And
Jesus, so similar to
I don't think we've actually had. You finish and then I'll.
So he's smart, my old man. He went, that's fine, do your marketing degree. And I said, oh, look, I actually like to take a year off uni and I want to drive around Australia in a van. And he said, look, I'll buy you a van, but when you come back, you switch that over and you do an accounting degree. And I was like, oh. And he made a deal I couldn't refuse. So.
That's cool. I didn't get the van, but I got the same. So I don't think we've ever had this conversation. So for everyone listening, Marty and I, it's full circle here almost. We started as young, snappy graduates at Ernst & Young back in 2005. So it's good to have Marty in here on the show, and good to hear his perspectives. But yeah, just touching on that, I had this exact same thing. So we're both chartered accountants. And my dad gave me the same pep talk. I was like, I'm going to go and do marketing. He's like, oh, mate, yeah, cool, but maybe you should look at accounting. And I remember laughing at him. And he said to me, he's like, look, mate, seriously, you can have all the good ideas in the world you want, but if you don't get the numbers right, that's all they're ever going to be. I was like, okay, fine. So, yeah, now I don't practice accounting on a regular basis, but I mean, I'm looking at numbers daily. And I guess probably take for granted, really, now that I've been out of the accounting world and working in commerce, how valuable that skill set is to being in a business or running a business.
Amazing foundation. And I just didn't know it as an 18-year-old kid,
No.
But my dad knew what was best and steered me down that way. And that's why we got to work together. So, I ran through that accounting degree at QUT and was lucky enough to get a grad position at EY. And then Brad and I worked together. I did it's a great business to work in. They pretty much run you through a process where you learn a ton of things. You get to work with a range of industries, big businesses, small businesses, different industries, health, mining, banks. And you learn how those businesses work. And you work with really smart people, right? You learn from the people you're working with. So had a great time. And that was kind of the first half of my career. So I ran through there for 10 years and then built up the courage and went and started a business for myself. So 2014, I started Aginic, data business based in Brisbane with a buddy of mine. And then we've been through a whole journey with that business now. So we're 10 years in.
So what was the... You fast forwarded quite a bit there from starting EY. So, obviously you got your skill set, you got your toolbox, you got some experience. At what point, did you always think that you wanted to do something else, or was there a specific moment that you can recall when you're like, yep, I'm going to do my own thing, got this idea?
Look, I think my old man is a bit of an entrepreneur. He had his own business. He was an electrician, but then he kind of spun that out and started his own thing. And I always looked up to him and went, that would be cool to be your own boss, and build something. So I always had that ambition, I think. But I didn't know kind of how to execute.
Yep.
So I think spending 10 years at EY meant just building a craft, building a skill set, and that's valuable to people. And then the next logical step is, how do I turn that craft or that skill set into our business.
Yeah. And Brett was at EY as well?
Yeah, so
Your business partner, sorry. Yeah.
my business partner Brett Tableau, he started in. He's an English. He's from Jersey actually, which is a island off the coast of France, but it's kind of technically a British colony area, territory, I think they call it. He started as straight into data analytics and data consulting in London. Because I started in accounting really and audit, and I evolved over my career at EY into data, and the reason I did that was because I just had a passion for it. So I was working on understanding, say, how a mine works at Rio Tinto, but I quickly ascertained that data would help me understand that in more detail and help me work out ways to optimize that. Rather than just observing or talking to people, the data was really the power in that work, and so I sort of pivoted into data and away from sort of financial accounting, and that sort of was a lucky timing because EY was sort of building out their data practice, and I was able to sort of get the advantages of sort of working with EY and growing that, and then Brett moved over to Brisbane, and we were sort of given the task to continue to build out the data practice for EY, which at its time was a couple of people, and we had effectively an opportunity to learn how to grow a business within a business, because the way that those big four organisations work is you're a sole trader within a big practice, right? And so you bring your own business in, you deliver it, you build your team. But you kind of get the easy bits sorted out for you. You get IT sorted, you get a brand, you get your payroll done for you.
Still got the safety, right?
Yeah. It's an awesome way to learn how to run a business, right?
So why did you take the risk and the leap to start your own show instead of just trying to climb the ranks, as EY? Yeah,
it's a funny one because we're having a great time and we're building, it's fun when you're growing. It's fun when you're kind of like working in an innovative area where, if you look at the data landscape, data as a technology in the business world was really being born around that time, like 2005 to 2010. Everyone was just learning about it, and there was so much technology innovating in that space. So it was so much fun. I wasn't really thinking too much about the future. I was just having a great time building this business. And then sort of got the tap on the shoulder from EY, and they said, "You guys are killing it. You're doing great. Like, here's the pathway to partner. You're on track." And that for me was actually, ironically, the moment where I went, I don't want to be a part. I don't want to be here anymore.
It's meant to do the opposite, right?
I thought, well, I think that was their intention. But what it ended up doing was a catalyst for having a think about the next sort of decade of my career.
Because you were a senior manager, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and that is, I guess, in the big four world is when you start thinking about.
Correct.
Where am I going to go?
Yeah, and I think as you get closer and closer to partner, I don't want to I think that those businesses are amazing places and they have such amazing talent, and it's such a great learning. Like I would push my kids into doing a few years in Big Four just because of the amount you learn and experience you get. But it just wasn't a long-term career path for me. Like a partner role isn't necessarily a business owner role. It's very different. But when I first went in, I thought partners were business owners, but it's still, a corporate role, and there's a lot of kind of things that you do that a business owner like, but you don't get the raw startup components. You don't have to find a premises. You don't have to, work out what accounting system you're going to be using, and you don't have to pay payroll yourself.
Yeah. That sounds horrible. Why do you want to do that?
There's a rush to it, right? There is an excitement to it, I suppose, doing all those things, creating a logo, creating a brand. We'll move past this in a sec, but just to round it out, I mean, there's an excitement, I would say, to that first however many months, year, where, you're not hamstrung by anything. Like, you're responsible for everything, and you can really do whatever it is you want to do, which is one thing. You can't do that, obviously, in a big firm.
So limited, is that what kind of way you're going to break the shackles and unlimited to just go on, do whatever you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it comes down to ability to execute on your own decisions. So if you're a partner, there's a lot of framework, there's a lot of governance, and your actual ability to sort of have a strategy and execute on it is constrained.
Okay. So let's go a little bit fast forward, and then obviously you doubled down on data, started your own firm with a business partner. Just to set the scene a little bit, what's an example of a really exciting kind of data project or a good outcome you achieved through a business?
Yeah, look, there's tons of examples, and maybe one good one is we've sort of worked with to help build a medical insights business called Cubico. So we started working with Anala Primary Care 4 or 5 years ago. They're a 30 GP practice out in the south side of Brisbane, and this is just like a really good example of how data can both help a business grow efficiently, but also kind of help the outcomes of the business, the goals of the business, which is better patient care, better patient outcomes. They came to us and said, we've got 30 GPs running in this clinic. We've got so much happening, and we don't really have a finger on the pulse of, are we being efficient? Are all our patients being seen when they need to be seen? Are they being recalled when they need to come back and see us? They use software to manage their practice, but they didn't really have like the insights and the day-to-day information they needed to make sure that they were doing that effectively. And so that sort of started with, hey, let's pull the data out of their patient management system and start to just run some analysis and work out, which GPs are. There's so many questions. There's like 500 questions when we brainstormed it, that would help them. It's things like, does a GP have an interesting work caseload, right? Like, are they getting to see, at different ages and different, diseases and different, chronic or different types of patients, because that makes them makes their job interesting, and it also allows them to get a broader, diverse work set. So there's that sort of stuff, and then there is, are all our GPs busy enough, and are all our GPs doing the right mix of nurse versus GP for each patient, and are there patients that we haven't seen in a year and we should be seeing them? So many questions, right, that we could just easily answer with data. And then that's a great example of that. We can take that, we can then convert that into a standard view for a person who's running a clinic, and then they can make it better immediately.
Would you build automation off the back of that for them as well? Would your scope go that far?
Definitely. Where we ended up going with that product is we created a business that built software that connects to the medical systems, so medical director best practice, and provides clinics with insights. And so that's now running in 1,500 clinics, and it's doing a really good job of helping those clinics provide a better service for patients. And
must provide a lot of value if you're able to turn it from a project into a business and roll it out to that many clinics.
Correct. And then the other thing, is if you're a GP, it's actually a pretty hard industry to make money. So this is helping. A good business needs to make money, and it needs to do its job, right? And I think a lot of GPs are out there because they want to service the community and they want to help the community get better. This helps them actually make a bit of money so that they're sustainable. Awesome.
So rolling forward to today, and then we'll go backwards. What does Aginic look like today?
All right. So Aginic has grown from Brett and I in my front porch room at East Brisbane in 2014, scared as heck about how I'm going to pay for dinner for my pregnant wife, to 150 people, and we're actually now part of we've merged with a business that's based down in Melbourne called the Mantle Group, and so all in all across our whole group of sort of brother and sister brands, we're about 900 people, and we offer kind of technical capability across data, across cloud, and across digital. And we're working with the biggest companies in Australia.
Well, it's a bit of a journey. Let's roll back to more the closer to the start of it, right? When you were, East Brisbane, just you two, struggling to, what do we do for dinner? What was the first moment when you realised, okay, no, this is actually working. This is a proper business. Let's get an office and hire more people and that kind of thing.
I think I've spoken to a lot of people about this. It's the first year is scary as hell, right? And I think if you're starting a business, you just have to prepare yourself to work hard and just run at it. Do you know what I mean? Like it takes a year to kind of get the engine started on a business, and that first year is hard. It's hard yakka, and you just got to be prepared for that. So that first year was all about juggling all of those balls that when I was at EY were getting done for me, right? So it's like someone's paying payroll, someone's servicing my laptop, getting me a new laptop if something breaks, someone's invoicing the customer, someone's helping me do the business development. All of that stuff falls back onto you, and then you're suddenly doing 6 roles, which I enjoyed for a short term. It's not a sustainable. It's not a sustainable occupation over the long term.
Well, what did you learn from that first year? Because the percentage of startup businesses that fail in the first year, I don't know what the stats are, but it's like ridiculously high, right? Isn't it like 60-something%, if not higher, fail in the first year? Probably should know that stat, but anyway, what are some lessons you learned in that first year? The
business needs to make money. Do you know what I mean? If it's your first business, and where we were, the type of business it was, it needed to be a money-making venture, and it needed to have a strategy and a plan to be cash flow positive. And so that's the kind of life and death, right? Because all the other things are secondary to that. And why do you say that? Is it because when you first started, you kind of broke out from a big company and there was this enormity of, like you said, getting all these other functions built? You didn't have that initial plan on like how to become a money-making machine from day one? Is that why you mentioned that? No, I think because, if you have that kind of core goal to go, how is this a viable, like what is the viability of this, the economic viability of this business? It's a simple model, right? When you're doing services, professional services, the model is fairly straightforward. You're selling time, right? You're selling time, but there's a lot of complexity behind that model, because there's quality, there's business development. Are you working and selling the right type of service? So I think you have that goal, but then you need to kind of translate that back through to the secondary goals, which are, is it a sustainable, and is it the type of business that will grow? And obviously it did for where you are today. I had a question around that. So being in the position you're in now and going through that hardship with the corporate background and then the first kind of year then to where you are now, what advice would you have for like entrepreneurs or startup business owners on how to scale efficiently? Scaling isn't linear. I suppose that's the first thing I would say. So scaling is bumpy, and at different inflection points in your growth, and I'm only talking about 0 to 120 people, so I'm learning more as I'm part of businesses that are scaling bigger than that now. But I would say in that early stage, sort of sub 100 people, there's probably still a half a dozen scaling points and inflection points where different pain points happen, and to be prepared for them, basically. So, for example, if you're two business partners running a business and you're focused very much on, what you're doing in your product, probably up to 20 people, you can self-manage that without any kind of back office staff. You can do it all yourself, and it's fun. Everyone is doing stuff that relates to kind of making them business drive. But there's a point where you need to realize if you want to continue to grow, you need to restructure your business and put in, non-revenue generating employees or people that aren't client facing, and then that changes the balance of a business. And so being aware that, you know, maybe at 20 people, at 50 people, at 80 people, at 100 people, you're going to hit these different points, pain points. And if I would have done anything differently, I probably would have, now that I know that, I would have helped my team be aware of that, because I think people kind of blindly grow and the team blindly grows, and it's really, and you kind of almost go past that pain point, and you have like this probably 6-month period where everyone's just hurting.
Should have done that 6 months ago. Yeah.
And I think if you're aware that you're going to hit those points before you hit them, then there's things you can do. It's still going to be painful, but there's things you can do just like around team and making the team aware that, you know, you're making these changes and helping that kind of ease that pain of that growth, I think is key. And I didn't do it, so that's just hindsight.
I got a lot of the questions, Brad. Did you want to jump in with it?
No, like, I mean, I can just echo kind of what Marty's saying. There is definitely those different pain points. It is lumpy, and you don't always know, like you said, like when you're in it, you know. So if you did have some of that foresight or some of that guidance, but where we are now at around 50 odd, definitely it was a big transition putting in a back office staff, management team, those kinds of like governance, managing people becomes a much bigger task, I suppose, making sure everybody gets what they need, gets what they want, is heard. So
I'm always so focused on kind of efficiency, right? Like, I think you have to always be, through that whole growth kind of trajectory, you need to make sure that everybody feels like they're contributing, and that the team, because it's always constantly changing, right? It's like it's like a moving feast. And so it's about going, is everybody feel like they know what their role is and feel like they're contributing, because that kind of helps everybody feel like they're valuable, and it helps the culture. And so I might just go into one thing that reminded me of that conversation. When we got to 50, we had, the sort of ever-present problem of a professional services business is, you know, you're doing 3 to 6 month projects, and then they don't always line up perfectly. So you
do they ever?
They never line up perfectly. It's probably a better way to phrase it. And so you have a bench, right? And so you've got these amazing superstar team members who might be sitting on the bench for a month and waiting for that next project. And I was looking at that at 50 people going, this is a waste. You know, they're doing a bit of learning and development, but they're really not excited about what they're doing. They're waiting for that next thing to come along. And so that sort of spawned the idea of, hey, you know, we've got all these ideas. You know, everyone, like, we're a bunch of smart people thinking about ideas, and we're working with a bunch of these different clients who have problems, and we're fixing them maybe in a project, but then we're seeing like a pattern of these problems. There's probably some product ideas here that we can work on with that bench, you know, and the team love it because they're like working on product, and we like it because it's more efficient and it's cool. And so we started Aginic Ventures, and that was about halfway through, 4 years into building Aginic.
So that was around 50 people?
So we were about 50 people, and we kind of dedicated a couple of people. Well, it was, you know, like all these things you iterate on, like trying to get the right model. And in the beginning, it was like, just use the bench.
Yep.
But then as soon as we win a big project, like the bench gets swept, and then we're like, what about all these
Where's the bench
stuff?
gone?
Yeah, it's like, well, the cool stuff we're building just stalled. So then we kind of got to a point where we decided we needed to dedicate a couple of people.
Yep.
And yeah, that's evolved over time. It's been super exciting. Like that part of the business is now about 10 or 12 dedicated software engineers, designers, product people, and we effectively build product, but we do it like kind of for equity type idea. So they're like just diversification of our business, right? Because we're seeing ideas as we get around town and talk to people, and then we're helping build those ideas out for a longer play.
Before I do want to unpack that and what that looks like now, the ventures piece. But before we get there, what advice do you have for a services-focused business on managing cash flow? Because I can imagine you've got projects and we're similar to that, but we have a lot of recurring stuff and like project-based work, I guess. So like half that problem, I guess. But it's always like you win more work, then you put on more people, then you don't win work, and then you got people and that kind of thing. What advice would you have for that?
Well, I could probably thank my dad because he made me get an accounting degree. Get an accounting degree. No, jokes aside, I think you need to understand, you need to not be afraid of accounting and not be afraid of information data and reporting on your business. So that stuff will give you like a horizon. It'll give you a forward-looking view of where you're at, and then you can make much better decisions. Like I think if you're not looking at the data of your own business, and for me it was like it would be a sacrilege because I tell all my customers and clients that I work with that data is like the lifeblood of their business. I need to be looking at my own data as well, right? And I need to know what's the trend, the trajectory, and then you got to commit to it. And we always built the business on full-time employees rather than contracting, and that was more of a cultural play. Like we're so focused on building a team and a culture, you can't do that with contractor-based growth, I think.
So just on that one a little bit, just because you helped me out a little bit with this, what was the inflection point or to bring on that external financial advice in that kind of virtual CFO type role?
It's not necessarily a exact point in time, but it's finding the right person.
Okay, yep.
So I think once you get over 50 people, you're at a scale where you could do with it.
Yep.
But, it's one of those roles where it needs to be someone who's really good.
Yep.
And it's rare to find that skill set.
That will jive with you and your team and your culture, etc. Yeah, it's just interesting. Like we both say that we've got accounting degrees, but again, a term that I came across recently that I really like that I shared earlier is like as you do evolve and the business grows and you're used to being across everything, like we were talking about, kind of your not to-do list becomes more important than your to-do list, and knowing where to move those items on your to-do list around your team.
I love that.
Yeah. So I guess it was this year for us where, it's like I define it, there's just so many transactions, there's just so much going through the business, whereas, 2 years ago, however long ago, was able to almost know every single thing that was coming in and out, but it's just impossible and impractical. So you kind of have to have a mindset shift in your style as well and be able to find the right people. So again, thank you. And train your team, develop your team, build that framework for someone else to do it. So,
yeah, and that's goes back to that scaling question. I think, you want to constantly be thinking about how you make yourself redundant because as you scale, it's just not feasible to do everything, and then it's about picking good people.
That's an interesting one because that is not linear either. That is a very there's no right answer other than that you need to manage your time and build out the team. There's
a gut feel in that, and there's a bit of an art, I think, and then I think like London buses. You might not see a good person for a couple of months, and then you might find 3 good people, and then you got to make a call as to whether you just commit and bring them all in.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to unpack that piece, finding good people and then retaining them, because it's probably really hard in what you do, I'd say, which we have the same kind of challenges. Obviously, everyone does in this kind of landscape. But back to that, you joked and said getting an accounting degree. What made you? When was the point where you said, "Okay, no, we actually need like a virtual CFO, extra help"? What was that point?
I think to Brad's point, it becomes a opportunity cost question, right? Because like I work hard all day, but each hour that I put into the business returns some kind of value back out. And it's about looking at that input and saying, where am I best used in the business right now? And that's that kind of constant challenge of you have to challenge yourself every year on that in the business and go, where am I best used? And I think there's a point where you go, I'm wasted, doing all this finance work. I'm much better going out talking to customers or taking the team out and building the team or working on recruitment or do you know what I mean? And kind of go, where am I? What's the opportunity cost of the situation at the time?
Good advice. So on the people piece, imagine what you do. You've got software developers, probably data analysts and a bunch of those kind of people, which is not easy to find and to keep happy and retain. What advice would you have around finding the right person and then retaining them?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because we've had a few different strategies over the years. I think one thing that I can say just sort of straight out is I prioritize kind of a person's ability and current and capability over their experience. So like the person's attributes are much more important than the number of years they've worked in the industry or on a certain technology. And so I've kind of gone with that philosophy first. Hire good people and they can learn. Mm-hmm. And, different recruiting techniques like I'm not sure if I should give them away on the podcast because then anyone I recruit's going to be like researching this stuff. But I do little challenges and things in because I'm looking for like cognitive stuff, but I'm also it's like the beer test plus the cognitive stuff.
Give us an example, Marty, of one you used maybe ages ago you don't use anymore.
Because I don't do a lot of recruitment anymore, so that's probably okay. But it's the bucket. There's a bucket challenge, right? Which is a great one. So it's like a 3-litre bucket and a 5-litre bucket. You've got a running tap. And if you're a Bruce Willis fan and you've watched Die Hard 3 specifically, and they're in Central Park, and you're like, I've seen that on Die Hard 3, then I'm like, you're hired. You're in. But it's a little logic challenge that says you got a running tap, you got 3-litre bucket, you got a 5-litre bucket, you need to make exactly 4 litres, right? And so it's about sort of thinking on the spot in the interview and going, what can I do with those things? And you learn a lot about a person who hasn't come across such a problem like that. And they're solving it in front of you in a high-pressure situation.
Okay. And then on the retaining talent, what do you do around that kind of culture differently? Because, obviously you've grown successfully, which means you can't do that at scale without a good culture and having good people. And you've got to 120, then obviously you merged with Mantle Group. But so what advice would you have around that culture retention?
That's one of the catalysts for joining the Mantle Group, because I think we were stretching our business, with the team we had, and we were at 100, 120 people. We were, lacking the sales marketing arsenal, and we also were looking for ways to manage that as we scaled the culture thing. Because traditionally, if it's a team that's 50 or less, the founders can have a real impact on that still. And I think it's really about sort of leading by example and driving these initiatives for people to come together and really like leading from the top, that culture. Once you kind of scale past that, people don't know you, and they don't see you every day because they're in a different office. So that was one of the sort of scaling pain points for us. And it's been awesome joining Mantle, who kind of scaled through that, and they were at 600 people when they came together with us. And the thing that I've learned from Mantle is they got the 2 founders, and then like the next person in the kind of leadership is Caroline, who's head of HR. And so they prioritize up against everything else people, and so Caroline is in all the leadership stuff, and she's really driving the people and the culture of the organisation, and it's demonstrated in the Mantle Group has won the best place to work 4 years in a row. They came first last 2 years.
Why did they win? What are things that they do well?
Yeah, it's a couple of different. this is probably a whole podcast, right?
Yeah. I guess cram this.
But if I cram it into like
version,
a couple of things that I've observed,
yeah, awesome.
I think it's principle-based organisation is key. So rather than a policy-based organisation, so a principle-based organisation is, hey guys, everyone here is smart and we trust you. Here are kind of the 6 principles we want to run our organisation by. We trust you to make good decisions, and you're an adult and you're smart and you're part of this team. And even at like 900 people now, like we don't have an expense policy. You know, you just make good choices about what you need to do in the best interest of the business. I love that, you know, and people love that, you know, like teams love that. They want the freedom to execute and get stuff done. And, you know, when we're up against our competitors who are sometimes Big Four now, I remember back to those days and, you know, thinking of being a partner there, you know, you got someone still approving your coffee expenses down the road or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a very different, once you scale to 100,000 people, 150,000 people, it's, you know, process and structure right through. So I think that is a key, you know, foundational piece.
Okay. We probably can unpack that a lot, but we'll carry on because I could go for a while. Give us an overview of Aginic Ventures. So what kind of, I guess, projects, or do you call them projects? What do you call them now? Products or like...
they're ventures,
ventures,
right? So they're products, and where it's evolved to from that kind of like bench team kind of prototyping stuff out to is really a true incubator now. So we've got a great guy that's sort of been part of our business, Robbie Mackay, since pretty early on. And he sort of co-founded the ventures piece with us, and he is constantly on the lookout for 2 things: great founders, like great people who show the traits of someone who could really create a good business, and then great ideas. And they don't always have to come together. They can be, you can get a great founder with a crap idea, and it's going to go nowhere, or you could get a, you know, not so great founder with an excellent idea and it's not going to get there. So you kind of need those 2 things. And so Robbie now, and the way the ventures business works is it's very much a, you know, where over the last 5 years, I mean, you guys probably have seen it, but there's just been an amazing growth in startup culture and the community in Brisbane, and we've kind of been a part of that, and it's been super exciting to see. You know, he's been, you know, beating that pavement and meeting people and looking for ideas, and then when we find those good ideas and those good people coming together, then we partner with them to build their product, because it's very early stage is our target. So we're looking for people probably with just an idea in their head. They haven't even incorporated a company, or, you know, within 6 months of that kind of time frame at the very beginning. Then we'll build it, and it's not just product focused. It's like, you know, we'll help you with your website, we'll help you with your brand, we'll help you with all the bits, you know, that you need to get this business up and running. So it's a true incubation. And, you know, 6, 9 months, 12 months later, we're targeting revenue. We're looking for businesses that are software, SaaS, health, tech, with a data bent is our kind of perfect.
Makes sense, yeah.
Spots where that's our heritage.
And that's in Mantle Group as well?
Yeah, so Mantle Group... So Mantle Group is a house of brands. Think of it as a house of brands. There's a bunch of brands in there, and now we have Aginic and Aginic Ventures as brands.
Yeah, cool.
The businesses that we help are separate still.
Yep.
Yeah.
Talk to me, pivoting around back to like the core data services. When you started Aginic in 2014, what did that look like? What did data and like insights and services look like then versus now? Yeah,
great question. And I can probably just sort of preempt this question with another sort of overall comment. If you look at software has been sort of being created in the mainstream since about 1990, 1995, say. And so it's, 30 years old now, you can call it, like true kind of mainstream software development. Data really came into its fore in, say, 2000, 2005, that kind of range, like probably a full decade later. And so it was very exciting. It was almost like the frontier, back in 2005 when Brad and I started, there was Excel and there were things like that, but there really wasn't, the technology wasn't there. The computing processing wasn't there. You couldn't load 1 million rows of data into your Excel and make sensible analysis of it because your computer wasn't powerful enough to do it.
Yeah.
So it was a frontier. It was awesome. 2005, 2010, the change that happened in that space and just the proliferation of innovation and products that were coming meant that there was a lot of exciting stuff coming out every year. So 2014, the real focus by that point was kind of moving away from your traditional like cube-based technologies and sort of slow-moving data platforms to rapid visualization, insights generation, and the tooling was there, like the Tableaus and the Power BI wasn't quite there, but that kind of visualization products were just launching, and we'd go talk to CFOs, and it was like, I haven't seen. You just grab a bit of data, and in 2 hours, you were showing them stuff about their business that they didn't know, and that was awesome. I love that. Like we were just rolling around, just generating insights like this, and then. Obviously, like all things cycle, what happened then was that kind of matured, that visualization space, and which is good. So a lot of organizations invested in analysts and visualization analysts and people that could build Power BI dashboards, and that kind of happened, say, 2015 to 2019. And as a data professional services business, we want to be staying out of the commodity space. Like they don't want to talk to us about stuff that they're doing. They want to talk about us about stuff they're not doing, right? And so we moved then probably deeper into the stack because you can think about timing. Azure was being launched in the early 2010s. AWS was there and growing. There was a lot of cloud, and there was a lot of cloud platform stuff happening. And then that means more engineering type stuff. So it's like moving data into the cloud, migrating onto more modern data platforms. The visualization stuff sat on top of that, but like a lot of the work was in that kind of engineering space.
And then today, 2023, what's happening?
Oh, we're in the AI hype cycle.
Yeah.
Do you like the roller coaster?
Yeah. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. What's actually happening?
Well, everyone's been talking about it for 5-10 years, right? I actually think we're getting the traction. We've come off the hype cycle and we're into actually business value territory now.
I feel like everyone's talking about ChatGPT, but like what other AI is actually hitting businesses right now? Like what's some of what are you seeing?
So, what I am seeing is teams investing in capability, and I'm seeing technology leaders releasing like good product. So, if you look at we'll get technical for a quick second, but if you look at like the leading data platform products like Snowflake and Databricks, if anyone is kind of read up on the platforms, both of those products are in this kind of beautiful innovation cycle right now where they've kind of come through the last 5 years and got the baseline of data platform engineering there, and now they're kind of pushing their products to facilitate ML and ML operations, so like the automation of ML and helping business, giving businesses the tools they need to actually execute on ML opportunities.
Have you got any I guess like maybe recent case studies, like AI projects that you're safe that you can speak about?
Like if I look at the kind of trajectory, we're doing 5 times more of those types of projects than we were 3-4 years ago. And there is a lot of, so ChatGPT is based on a technology called like large language model or LLM. There's a lot of interest in that space right now because it's ChatGPT is just an LLM that people can use and pay for, but there's a huge amount of innovation happening in the LLM models, and businesses can take those models and use them themselves in their own environments. And I think a lot of the work we're doing now, which is quite exciting, is businesses getting their data preparing it for leveraging those models.
I'm seeing a lot of things come out with, this might not be the right technical term, but plugins effectively to that framework, that model, where they can put their data into it and get...
Look, the models are evolving and innovating so fast. It's insane. So the best thing that you can do as a business is get your data ready to leverage those models.
Mm-hmm. It's good advice. It's like we had the managing director of Arowana on the podcast last week, actually, and they were just releasing or trying to release like AI courses and ChatGPT courses, and it's like by the time they get the content out, it's already changed, kind of thing. It's like moving so crazy. There's definitely a lot of business opportunity, I think, that'll pop up around that for sure.
Yeah, and like when it comes to I translate it back to like real world examples. There's a lot of businesses out there that have, for example, say, big stock databases, like this is all our inventory, or big customer databases that have like all the detail in there, and the data quality is very low usually. Like there's it's been entered by humans over 50 years, and so there's a lot of crap in there basically. There's so many use cases for LLMs. Like the first one would be, let's run an LLM through our database and clean it up. Let's create an image for stock items that don't have images, based on what's in there and pre-existing in there. So like cleaning up your own data. And then probably I can see it sort of taking over the way that humans interact with data and query data. So you don't build Power BI dashboards anymore. You literally just have a natural language interface to your database. So you're like, it might be just like a query, like it might be like, how many widgets have we got at the moment, in stock? Or how many widgets did we sell last month? That stuff is simple for an LLM. But it also might be based on last year's sales and this year's sales. Tell me who I need to be marketing to next year. Right. Starting to get to that, So you can just start asking questions.
Yeah, because I think Microsoft just announced that they had their own private company use in Azure ChatGPT instance. Is that... I think
they do.
is that out yet?
Azure OpenAI.
Yeah, have they released that?
They're not. It's not open release yet, but they're doing it for special customers.
Right. I mean, that's going to definitely change it.
It won't be long. It'll be here next year.
Yeah,
it's going to be exciting. Couple decade coming up. What's next for Marty Conneely?
Conneely.
Oh, it's Conneely. I did it.
It's actually a really odd spelling, and I'll tell you a really 2-second story about the spelling. So my heritage is West Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and my old man was pretty much born en route from getting out. His whole family got out of there after the war. Some brothers went to New York. Some brothers came to Brisbane randomly. Obviously, my old man was in the Brisbane crew. And the guys that went to New York, they had a thick Irish accent, and no paperwork. They just literally rock up on a boat to the entry point in New York, and they said, "What's your name?" And they went, Conneely, and they just spelt them Connolly.
Yeah, right.
Gave them more paperwork for Connolly. So all my rallies in the US are just Connolly.
Yeah, right.
Because that's how they got just processed.
You took the traditional Conneely, so that bogans like me mispronounce it all the time.
I'm glad you're owning it.
So it's easy for someone to make a mistake, is my point. Look, I'm loving life at the moment. It's been really awesome growing Aginic, and then also sort of setting it free into Mantle so that it can continue to grow, because we were hitting a ceiling, and now it's great seeing it continuing to grow as part of the broader Mantle group. I think in the coming... if I think about my life in decades, like the EY decade, the Aginic decade, I think the next decade, I'd love to get more into the data analytics in healthcare tech. So that might be also growing, Mantle Group's offering into that space, but also helping build businesses in that space. I love the healthcare industry, passionate about it, and I also really like data tech, so.
Healthcare industry is not going anywhere. It's only going to grow, right? And same with data and AI. It's also not going anywhere. So that's...
And I think that they can help one another. Like, I think there probably isn't enough health and enough data and tech in health right now.
Probably agree with that. Marty, thanks for coming in, sharing your insights. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Marty. Cheers.